Second item on the agenda, and Jen is going to cover this. There was a memo in the your packet regarding the solar project that CFU is involved in, and the City Council met with the Utility Board in a joint meeting and talked, and there was a presentation made by utilities about the project and asked for city participation. I think since that time, I think the utility staff has gone out and met with a lot of commercial businesses, and there have been some, I guess, some contracts, or I believe some buy-in from some of those interviews. I know, Pam, I don't know if you have a detail, you weren't expecting to give a report on that, but I know there has been some effort, I think, since that meeting with a lot of commercial, and there's been some, some good responses, I understand. But you want to briefly summarize?
Sure. Well, like you mentioned, Mayor, that the idea was, or CFU's Utilities is involved in the Simple Solar project. So when the trustees and the City Council met, there was that idea proposed about whether the city would like to participate in that program. And so as the Mayor mentioned, in your packet was a memo that kind of outlined that analysis of, whether the city should invest in that program. And up on the screen is some information that CFU proposed to us at the meeting, and you can see that they had let us know that the city currently uses 7.6 million in kilowatts for our energy usage. And that was a number they provided to us. What I did then is I wanted to find out, but what funds really use up that electricity? And you can see that sewer is by far the biggest user of our electrical usage. So knowing that if we decide to proceed ahead with the investment, the sewer fund's going to have to be a big investor. The second one is the general fund, and then street, and then other is just some smaller ones that could be refuse. It could be like our visitors and tourism, parking, some things like that that are much smaller usage. So CFU at the time proposed, what if we reduced our energy by 10%? What kind of investment would that be by the city? And so, they had talked about a share is worth the 300 kilowatts. A share costs valued at $399. So basically that would be about $1 million investment by the city if we wanted to do that 10% reduction. You'll see I added the column on the right about excluding sewer, because even though sewer is the highest user, unfortunately it's also the fund that's really starting to see some strain as it relates to big projects going on. We've already had, the large disinfection project. We know proceeding forward in the CIP are a lot of other big projects. We don't know as it relates to some EPA mandates what those could be. So in this recommendation and proposal, you'll see that whatever scenario you use, I wanted to throw out there the number excluding sewer, because I think that's going to be difficult to justify having the sewer fund invest at this time, knowing that to build up those that reserve would really result in increases, sewer rate increases. And currently, we're already I think we're heading into our 5th year of the 5% increase each year for 5 years. We know looking forward, because of those large projects on the CIP, we're probably going to see other sewer increases. So that's why all the charts show that. Again, the 10% was just thrown out as a number by Cedar Falls Utilities. They had just mentioned in our goals, the city talked about a 10% reduction. They also just threw out, okay, if you didn't feel like you wanted to invest that much, what's 5%? Obviously, that would be half. So that would be an investment of about $500,000, or again, excluding the sewer, you'll be looking at $244,000. Now, as we talked a little bit more about it, we did inquire with Cedar Falls Utilities about if they're investing in the project. They did let us know that their electric and gas utility are participating in the project. However, their water and communication are not participating. So we had just asked the question that even though electric and gas, they're basing their investment on a 10% reduction, if you took the two into account that were not participating, what's kind of that average? And so that's where they came up with a 3.75%. So that's why I threw out that kind of third option on the chart is, okay, what if we really do that same 3.75% reduction? And so again, taking into account the kilowatts we use, how much kilowatts per share, the cost of a share, it comes up with just a little under $382,000 of an investment. But again, you'll see that I put that excluding the sewer fund of $183,000. Just a little bit about rate of return. CFU just kind of taking that simplified approach throughout, like a 2.12%, 2.4% rate of return. I think right now, when you look at the market, that looks very attractive. I think you have to kind of keep in mind that interest rates do go up and down and do cycle through, and this is a 15 to 20-year investment, so you have to think about, well, in 15 years from now, is the 2.12, 2.4 still a good rate of return? Now, obviously, those are all things we don't know. Now, I know that Cedar Falls Utilities did say that as they move into, if their first phase goes very well and they're kind of then in that second level with businesses participating, that rate of return could go up to 5%. Obviously, that looks very attractive even when you look at a 20% or 20-year history. So, but again, all those are assumptions and factors and nothing we know for sure. I did want to mention that the city really already has been a partner in the project by the land. They were looking at if full build-out would be close to 8 acres. The city did talk about, we are basically letting them use the land for the project. So that is, we really are being a partner in the project already. But, so I think for tonight, really, again, because the idea was thrown out, I know Cedar Falls Utilities is kind of wanting to know whether we are interested in investing. You'll see that probably from a conservative approach that, maybe doing that same investment of the 3.75%. I think we would exclude the sewer fund in that. I just don't think we can justify really the sewer fund probably investing at this point. Be looking at, I'd probably just recommend no more than that $183,000 investment at this point. So really that just kind of outlines the memo. Obviously, if there's questions, one of the things I know that was asked earlier today by Council Person Miller, he had just asked about, how will we know what our credit is? And I said that was one of my concerns too, that you want to be able to justify or know in 10 or 15 years or 20 years, okay, what did we get for credit? And Cedar Falls Utilities did talk about that will show up on the utility bills as a credit, so we would be able to track that and keep track of that over the years, so.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question regarding the land.
Sure.
We gave them the land to use or leased it really for nothing, but we've got a $680,000 investment then.
Correct.
So that would be what, with your math of, what'd you say, $3.99 a share? It'd be like 1,712 shares. But they don't give us any shares for the use of the land?
Correct. That's their proposal right now. Is part of their modeling was they didn't factor in that there would be a cost to the land. And so I think to get their rate of return and their financial models to work, they could not really factor that financial piece in. Now, I think as if we want to continue to talk about that and discuss that with them, I think we could sure do that. I think we want to at least get some acknowledgement, I think, as part of the project that the city is really already being a partner already in that. But no, that's a good question, and it was actually posed to them, whether there would be any thought to giving us credit for that.
Yeah, it seems like we should be getting credit for that investment that we've already given to them.
And so I think you're saying about a third of what they're initially sort of threw out.
Sure.
About 3 times.
When they first threw out the 10% reduction.
Sure, and we're talking
$1 million, yeah.
375. So we've cut it about 2/3 of what their request was. Not that that's set amount. Okay. Yes.
Question for Jennifer. We're looking at $680,000 worth of land.
Okay.
And then $183,000
Sure.
worth of shares. Ever look at converting the land into shares?
I think that's just what Susan was doing. That's just what she was, yeah. She was just talking about.
What dollar
She was
amount?
saying the same thing.
She was just saying that the $680,000, if you took that, and again, we were looking at a market value of that. Obviously, that's not our cost of the land. That's the market value.
I think we paid $3,000 for it a long time ago.
So I think, I want to
Literally.
factor that in, that it is the market value of the land. So that, yeah, but that's what Susan was doing, Dave, is she was talking
couldn't hear
about
her.
how that, yeah.
Mayor,
Mayor.
Yes.
there's another factor in the land issue.
then we can sell it.
You have to bear in mind that years and years ago, CFU actually had probably 120 acres that became the original industrial park, and they gave that to the city. And so some of this is a bit of a trading going on, and certainly that 120 acres has created a lot of tax base and jobs over the last 20 to 30 years. So I know that when we had our original conversations with CFU about use of that land, that was certainly a factor in our minds that they probably would have had land available for this kind of project if they'd hung on to it. But they recognized at the time they weren't going to be using it to generate additional power, and so they transferred that land to the city at no cost, and then we turned it in basically to an industrial park. The first 3 phases of the industrial park, actually.
Okay.
One more point, too, is Jen didn't mention, and I know it appears the council's shying away from tapping into the sewer fund. Another variable there is that the cash reserves are very important in the sewer fund, because when we get ready to go sell bonds, the amount of cash reserves that exist play a role in the coverage factor. And the coverage factor is, do you have reserves on hand if there was a default in rates to be able to make a debt payment? And so to get a decent interest rate, they are always going to judge how much cash you have on hand so that you could make those debt payments if there was some kind of failure to generate the appropriate amount of rates to make the debt payment.
So Dick, just for clarification, that being said, does that mean that if you cut into those reserves that you could potentially have a rate increase for the public?
Certainly. And that's why we're saying stay away from the sewer fund, is because there's no question, and much like CFU is facing with their water utility, if you were to participate and draw down those reserves to participate, you would probably have to have a rate increase. And it's kind of hard to justify that. The council already knows you're going to have rate increases in your sewer fund just to do the capital improvements that we know they're laying out there. It just would be a bad financial decision.
Do you want a motion, Mr. Mayor? Is that what you want tonight? Or?
As you probably remember, they asked for, I know they wanted a decision early August, if not July. That was my understanding.
Correct.
From what they said at the meeting, because I think they have to they're making a decision by early August whether to proceed or not. Is that my understanding? I think that's correct from what was
Yep,
presented.
that's the timeline we heard,
We all
correct.
were there, but that's what I heard.
Yep.
So, so you prefer one tonight, sure.
Yes. Another thing that I don't think Jen mentioned, we learned today that if CFU can get enough customers to participate, they can get what they call the second level. And that second level will mean that the return will pay for itself in a 10-year period rather than a 15 or 20. And they believe they've already hit the first level threshold. And of course, these are estimates and calculations, but I think they believe that although they're telling us that we might get a return in that 15, 20, it may be much shorter than that if in fact larger customers buy into this program.
Okay, so what you have before you is a recommendation of 183,000. So, I mean, that's the preference, but and then you can decide. Yes.
Or we've already committed and agreed, and I think it's a good program with a lot of merit, to give them the land. We can
Right.
just stop at that and not invest our citizens' funds further by investing in this.
Okay, but as Dick said, they gave us 120 acres. We're talking about 8 acres. That's not even close to what they gave us. We were also, you probably remember, we were talking about $400,000 for street lighting, of them absorbing it, not having us do that. So there's a fair amount of money that's going the other way.
I move we pass the staff recommendation.
I would second that.
Other discussion?
Well, I'd like to add that
Yes.
I thought they did a nice job, the utilities did, by pointing out that the goal of reducing our energy usage was actually established in the Vision 20, in the public committee that set goals 10 years ago or 5 years ago in our Vision
Including the
2020
city.
plan. So it seems to be a priority of the community, to do that kind of thing. And I think it's, in my mind, it's a good use of our money. It's an investment for the future.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Motion passes and will be on for consideration at the next meeting. Next council meeting for formalized approval.